Welcome to the Royal School of Needlework Sampler Series. Originally, samplers were used by embroiderers as a record of designs before pattern books came out. Later, they became the standard tool for teaching young girls all the hand stitching techniques that they would need for domestic uses. And then later, it became a decorative item in its own right. For the first time, the Royal School of Needlework is offering students the chance to learn embroidery techniques in this traditional way. Each sampler will have sections for you to learn, practice, and perfect your stitches, plus an additional section for your own design to go in, which you can then interpret in your favorite stitches learned along the way. My name is Kelley Aldridge, and I look forward to taking you through a lovely journey of stitch and helping you create a family heirloom for years to come. When the RSN and I launched the first Sampler Series, we hadn't even heard of COVID-19, but our world was to change halfway through our project, and our regular get-togethers online in what I liked to call the Zoom room became more important to all of us, not just to learn, but to connect. I have been amazed, impressed, and humbled by the friendship and generosity these ladies have shown to each other and to me. Teaching these talented, hardworking, funny, and kind-hearted women has been a joy and sheer delight for me. I hope you enjoy hearing from them now and seeing their gorgeous samplers. Well done, all of you.
The Sampler Series class was my first class with the RSN. I discovered stitching during the lockdown in spring 2020 and instantly liked it a lot, so I considered this class the best way to learn it right. The class has turned out to be so much more than just learning to do different stitches. Every Thursday when there was class was my me time, and stitching became my happy place. I discovered a completely new side of me because I never considered myself a creative person, and now I have a finished sampler whose central panel I designed myself. This is all thanks to this wonderful class. For my central panel, I chose to show how much I love cats. They are wonderful animals and great friends. There is, in my opinion, nothing better than a cat showing you their affection because it's pure and honest.
Hello, my name is Amanda. This is the first sampler I have ever stitched. I've thoroughly enjoyed learning all the new stitches and putting them into practice. I've learnt so much and really enjoyed the process. Kelly's been fantastic. She's always patient, kind, encouraging, and very supportive. And I wouldn't have expected to do such a good job, in my estimation, than I have. My central panel is an Australian homestead. This is because my grandparents' home was in the country surrounded by bushland. I wanted a gum tree right in the middle because I love them, the smell of them and their magnificence. And whenever I go home, I always go into the bush and hug gum trees. Just the smell of the eucalyptus is intoxicating. You'll see various Australian animals. There's a koala, kangaroo, a wombat, and an echidna. Some are stitched incorporating some traditional Aboriginal art. You'll see the little dots, which is what a lot of their art is made of. I've also included a wattle tree and a bottle brush tree, which are two of my favourite trees. The mountains in the background are there because the colours of the mountains can often change depending on the light. Where I come from in Canberra, the surrounding mountains are blue, but where my grandparents lived in Victoria, often the mountains had this purple hue all around it, and I just loved it so much. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Shelley and I'm a child of the 70s and grew up in rural Aotearoa in New Zealand. Much of the last 20 years has been spent travelling to and working with within remote Aboriginal communities as a nurse, midwife and home visitor. My transition to living back in New Zealand has been interrupted by the global pandemic. Early memories of an interest in fibres and textiles abound. I recall stitching buttons onto old cloth nappies, carding and spinning fleece and sewing, but for somebody who'd loved threads and textiles, I hadn't done any real embroidery. The availability of the RSN Online Sampler Workshop ignited a dormant interest. I've thoroughly enjoyed the learning and meeting fellow students. Each brings a different perspective to the group. Some are experienced and some, like me, are new to this. My central design continues to be a work in progress. The bottom part of my design is filling with things from my Kiwi foundations. Mum's spinning wheel, chickens, sheep and other surprises. Things that I'm transitioning back to eventually. Above a turquoise line depicting the Tasman Sea will be things of significance to me here in Australia. Surrounding the entire design is a border of manuka, which is the native shrubby tree from New Zealand in all her flowering glory, complete with bees. Experimenting with colour, threads and stitches has been meditative and relaxing for me in this time of the pandemic and our associated border restrictions. As I've progressed in my central design, I've increased my skills and my confidence, from how to most accurately to portraying manuka to a recognisable Mount Tapio Nukal. Most importantly, I've loved the process of learning, meeting new friends and scaffolding those early neural pathways I first developed with Mum's button box and those old flannel cloths. When I look at this, I really do reflect. I am a part of all that I have met.
When the details of the RSN Sampler course popped up on an email early last summer, I was instantly drawn to the photo of what I now think of as Kelly's sampler. On reading a little closer, I was surprised and excited to learn that the course would be offered online, and joy of joys, it was open to people living outside the UK. It only took a couple of days to make the decision to put my name down, keeping my fingers crossed that there would be a place available. The sampler has been a great learning experience. I had already used a number of the stitches before, but never when stretched in a hands-free frame, which requires a different technique and the acquisition of new skills. This is a work in progress. I usually struggle to come up with an idea for a design, but this time I knew that I would like to include a Swiss chalet. In 2020, we celebrated becoming naturalised Swiss after 40 years living in the country, and in 2021, 40 years of marriage. To own a chalet has always been a dream, so while we are waiting, I built one instead. Not an easy subject, as it took me weeks and 4 tries to find a way of representing the wooden planks. I hope this now works. I love the Thursday evenings online. I made supportive and fun friends around the world at a time when we all needed a distraction and something to occupy our hearts, hands and minds. Congratulations to the RSN for taking your courses online, a wonderful move for those of us who do live outside the UK. I have long admired the work you do and the standards you keep, and look forward to being able to continue to study with you in the future. I would also like to offer Kelly my sincere and heartfelt thanks for her unstinting professionalism, enthusiasm and laughter. I love this course.
Hello, this is Caitlin from Melbourne, Australia. I wanted to thank you, Kelly and RSN, for this opportunity for the sampler program. It was magnificent. I learned so many techniques and was guided through so many little complicated stitches. It was a true joy. It was also lovely working and stitching with the other ladies on Zoom, most rewarding, and hopefully one day we can all catch up and have some champagne and discuss further stitching programs. My central panel of Simple Harmony, I drew reference from our beach house in Mornington Peninsula at Portsea, with olive trees, my 2 French bulldogs, kumquat references to my dad, And I think it all worked out quite well. I'm very, very happy with the final result. And I look forward to seeing the rest of the ladies' work. But once again, thank you so much. It was a true honour. Even getting up at 4 a.m. it was fabulous. Thank you. Stay safe. Cheers.
Hi, I'm Mindy Moman from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, USA. I've stitched, cross-stitched, and counted samplers for most of my life, but when I saw this RSN class with Kelley advertised, it immediately piqued my interest. I had long looked at surface embroidery projects and wondered if I could make the switch from counted work. I'm so happy that I decided to make the commitment of 2 Thursday evenings a month for a year to expand my needlework knowledge. Kelley's loving, warm, and vibrant personality shines through her teaching, even though she was thousands of miles away. I now have a repertoire of stitches that I love. I also had a few catastrophes along the way with my project, but Kelley was there to virtually hold my hand and walk me through the fixes. For my central design, I decided to highlight my home here in the Valley of Virginia. When the world shut down in March of 2020, my family and I were very blessed to have acreage to explore daily right outside our back door. We watched the sun rise over the Blue Ridge and set behind the Appalachian Mountains. Our boys played in and along the creek Buttermilk Run that runs through our property. I wanted to honor the world outside our door while also highlighting the 200th birthday of our home in 2022. I began with a clear path of how I was going to execute the design, but once again ran into obstacles. With encouragement from my classmates and friends, I just kept stitching. The more I stitched, the more I felt like the world I was stitching was truly what I had envisioned for the design. The sampler is unfinished in these pictures, but I'm not finished with this or my stitching journey yet. Thank you, Kelley, for teaching me that I can tap into my own creativity and create my own designs in stitch.
I love colour, so I have used as much colour as possible in my sampler. I also love English country gardens and birds, hence my centre. This class has been just great. I took my sampler with me across Australia on my travels to New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland and South Australia. I did classes in hotel rooms at 3 o'clock in the morning. I have learnt so much in this class and loved every minute, so much so that I've enrolled in my certificate from the Royal School of Needlework. Kelley has been a fantastic teacher. We are all in different countries and different time zones. I've been half awake in some of them, and she's been brilliant and kind and inspiring. She's a great teacher. Thank you, Kelley.
I really enjoyed this class with Kelley. She's a wonderful teacher. I had never taken an embroidery class before, and I learned so many things that I'm sure to use over and over. I loved learning embroidery from my best friend's grandmother down the street when I was about 10 years old. She taught us both the very basic stitches, and it was really fun for me. I picked it up again many years later during the pandemic. I just never had time before. And this is a very special creative thing for me to do. I chose to draw and embroider a castle scene with a pond, swans, a willow tree, and flowers. It's just a scene from my imagination. I love traveling in Europe and seeing mysterious yet peaceful castles and watching the graceful swans gliding on the lakes, canals, or rivers nearby. The beauty of the scene really fills my heart. So I decided to join two of my loves, traveling in Europe and embroidery, together in this piece. I was inspired by looking through lots of different images, both of my travels and online, and I decided to do a castle in this style because this is my very favorite with the turrets. I also wanted to add some illuminated manuscript borders. It's really funny because I tried to tell Kelley what I wanted to do, but I couldn't think what they were called at the time. So I started making swirling motions and flowing motions with my hands and my arms, and she guessed it, an illuminated manuscript border. I love them. Again, I looked through lots of images and then drew my own version. It was such a fun project. I loved being able to embroider a scene of a castle and the swans, and then using the embroidered manuscript. It was just a very great experience, and I'm sure that I learned a lot that I'll use for a long time to come.
Hello, my name is Valerie and I'm a French literary agent. I've been working in the publishing industry for nearly 20 years now, and I've started to embroider 5 years ago when I turned 40. At that time, I started to have health problems and shaking hands. So as the ultimate challenge to myself, I attended some gold work classes at École de Sage in Paris, something where you have to control your whole body to find the best part of you. I quit my job and created my own literary agency. I kept on practicing embroidery. Apart from tambour, I really enjoy needlework. I was so pleased when I saw that the RSN started online courses some months ago. I enrolled straight away to the Sampler Saturday class with Kelly. I was part of a lovely group who cares for each other and gave support and feedback. Every month, I logged into the Zoom session with joy and learned so much. After I quit the big company I worked for so many years, I wished very hard to leave Paris, where we will build up our career and our family. I have identical twin boys, a teenage girl, and a big Maine Coon. This summer, this dream to be close to nature again, to raise my children in a safer place where you can walk to the city center or to your school, came true, and we moved in Burgundy in a very narrative house called La Charmecte, built in the early of the 20th century. This is the design I made for the central panel. It represents my 3-story and majestic house, with my embroidery room at the top of the tower, with flowers around it and beautiful swans. The tale of the ugly duckling was one of my favorites when I was a child. Apart from the swans, the rest is for real in my new place. Over the past year, I experimented a lot, and even if my sampler is far from perfect and a little bit wonky, I'm very proud to have climbed that mountain. But with Kelly as a teacher, no mountain seems to be too high to reach.
Hi, my name is Jenny Lees. I live in England, and about a year ago I started, or slightly more than a year ago now, I started the RSN Sampler course with Kelley Aldridge. My sampler is online and you will be able to see the pictures. It features largely my dog and my chickens and our ginger cat and a vintage car that my husband owns. It's called a Vauxhall. It's an old Vauxhall 3098. I have lots of children, but trying to put the children into my central design panel, which I found incredibly difficult to think about and come up with a final plan, trying to put the children into that just was a step too far. So I decided to concentrate on the things that I enjoy. My garden, the old car, the animals, the trees, and things like bumblebees, which were really good. And the course became a very important part of my life during the lockdowns. The Saturdays were a great pleasure, not just the actual art of learning to stitch, but also of meeting all those people around the world who were coming in from different time zones with different opinions and different thoughts. And the creativity that was on show was just unbelievable, fantastic. I'm very pleased with my sampler. I would like to do another one. I'd like to say thank you to Kelly. Fantastic course. Great teaching. And I fully expect to start another one. I now have a grandchild, so it's going to be even more impossible to put him on. But thank you, Kelly. Great course.
Hello, I'm Gabi and I'm from Switzerland. I really enjoyed those Saturdays where I spent the days with all the lovely ladies from my class and learned so many new and interesting things from Kelly. So at the end, even I was able to draw a design and transfer it onto my fabric. I never thought in my life that this would happen. The feeling as I made the first stitch onto my own design will be forever in my mind. A huge thank you to Kelly for always being so supportive. As a big part of my heart is always in Scotland, I decided to stitch something Scottish. And as we spent so much time at Loch Ness during the last 30 years, it had to be Achard Castle. It's far from being finished, but I'm getting there. It is still very special to me that I can decide which stitch to choose or which color. To learn how to bring my own design to a piece of fabric has opened a completely new world to me.